Hello everybody, welcome to something different entirely again. I'm still working out a better concept for the channel because I think the Let's Play stuff is quite boring in my opinion. Even though, that said, the previously stuff and the other stuff is great in my opinion. I try to find something new I can, well, order my channel with, use my channel for like a little bit different. I have to adjust the camera a bit differently. Sorry if you see a bit of my utensils here on the sides. That's my keyboard, just so I have better control. But I think we have to zoom out a bit. Now, what I'm going to do today is, if you watch the title, I'm going to show you something that I found while I was working on my room. I cleaned up my room, I got rid of old stuff, and I found my, well, I have two big boxes, like 10 liters of cards, mostly Yu-Gi-Oh cards, but also something else that I loved even more than Yu-Gi-Oh cards, or I love afterwards more than Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I have this stuff here. World of Warcraft trading cards, and it is weird because I have plenty more. I have like 5 boxes back there. With World of Warcraft trading cards, I played it for a while with 4 of my friends who also played World of Warcraft with me back in the day. Those cards are like the predecessor to Hearthstone, and I like that game much more, this game much more than Hearthstone itself. You will see much of the inspirations there. I don't know how long this video will take, but it will take some while. Anyways, so these are all German cards, sadly. These are from my scrub days back in the day. I think I was 15 back then, or 14. So it's more than 8 years. So keep that in mind. My English skills were not as shitty as today, but they were even worse. Actually, these are the first 2 expansions. Heroes of Azeroth, or in German Helden von Azeroth. Hey, hey. And the Dark Portal, or in German das dunkle Portal. The trading card game, let's look into this. This is my main deck box here. I will do this one last because, yeah. Yeah, it's not really tidied up. So these are the cards. These are just unsorted cards, except for, well, I put the hero cards into little things here so you can find them quicker. So these are all unsorted cards. Those boxes were great. These are standard deck boxes. You didn't know what hero was in a box. Like, if you bought a deck, it was totally random, but it was a deck for said hero. And you also had, I think, 3 boosters on the other side. And it was very cheap. The card game, in theory, was very, very cheap. And it was great to store, to buy those deck boxes if you didn't have all the classes covered. And you had so much space because you just kept those boxes. And it was done by Upper Deck Entertainment. Great company. Have a story to tell later on. Anyways. So, let's get rid of that box first. Just shortly reviewing cards. It's very, very easy. I got a bunch of hero cards here. I got a bunch of normal cards here. I hope the lighting is sufficient. Yeah, I have to turn them around because I'm sitting on this side, and yeah. So here we have a hero card. It kind of resembles Hearthstone cards because, yeah, your hero cards have like only health, they don't have attack. And each hero, that was very cool. Let me see if I can focus that right. Let's zoom in and put the focus there. So, it's in German, sorry for that. I think I bought only 2 English boosters back in the day. They have, here, they have like the little hero title. And then this hero is a Torrent Shaman. Now, that is like yeah, you understand what I mean. Like, this is the class and the race. This is all important, by the way. And he was, let me see his spec. He was an elemental shaman. So that was down here. And then we had the two professions he had, which were herbalism and skinning. So he had two professions, he had a class, etc. And then he had a special effect. This one has, like, you have to tap 5 cards, and then you can do 3 damage to a unit, and you can heal a unit of your choice, even a hero. So you could just say, I'm the Torrent Shaman, I'm Grennan Stormspeaker, and I lightning strike and heal the other guy, which was quite awesome. He was from the very first expansion that was down here. Always from the which expansion he was. First one was Azeroth, and then we have another one. Let me see if I find a Dark Portal one. That was an Outland one. There are so many of them. I have many of the different ones. In theory, it doesn't matter. There were many card expansions, but yeah, it was quite a sight. So you had those hero units. To showcase some units. We had, like, here a druid who here is a druid character who is a feral druid, with his professions being enchanting and engineering. Then we have survival hunter. He looks quite cool. I want to get the focus on the art. The art was quite good, except for that pet. Looks like, I'm gonna bite ya. And he had mining and engineering, so he was one of the people who had viable professions, which is quite good. Yeah. And then we have a Tauren warrior who's here. Also see that all of them have different health, depending on which class they are and which spec they are. So there was quite much balancing going on, and each had different stuff going along with them. Now, unlike Hearthstone, where you can play everything you want at any time you want, Hearthstone had, well, to say the least, Hearthstone has a very, very simple playstyle, while this game has a very complicated one, or at least partially complicated one. Just to showcase, if you took, for example, a Horde or Alliance hero, that was very important because you had Horde and Alliance unit cards. These are 2 of them. I hope the focus does get onto that. Focus, please. Focus. Okay, focus does not want to. Yeah, and these also were, every class was a human paladin or blood elf paladin, and those were your units. This is very interesting because they all had, like in Hearthstone, exactly the same thing. Exactly the same. They had an attack value and they had a health value. And also they had a cost value. And up here was like the indicator for Horde or Alliance. You could also see that on the card color, for which faction you could use them. And Alliance, at least at the beginning of the entire thing, Alliance had more of the taunting units, which you all know from Hearthstone as well, which allowed you to block, which forced enemies to attack them first. While Horde had more charge units. So Horde was more the offensive thing and Alliance was more defensive. Now, allow me to introduce you to more card types. I think this here is my Paladin deck, so one I made on the side. So I try to find everything here. Let's quickly go through that entire thing. Again, I have plenty of cards here, at least 500. And I didn't find every card. I have one rogue deck I didn't find, which for me is like shame. And I have another deck that I didn't find, a warrior deck where I, from the boosters, I had like 2 to 3 cards, being those rare lootable cards. First of all, the little toy which you also can get from the Dark Moon Fair, those riding tiger things, just with just as a spectral tiger thing. Come on, there has to be like at least one weapon card. Kind of disappointing. I went already through that. Maybe here. What also was interesting about the card game was that you had to build your deck. Your minimal deck size was I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think the minimum deck size was oh, we can talk about that too, was 60 cards. So plenty of cards to go along with. Maybe I find there's one. Did I find something else? I could talk about that too. Sorry that I'm... here's the card I was looking for. Is there something else? Not at the moment. Maybe we see another card later. Now, quite interesting. So we have most of the card types here. Those card types are... let's start with the easy ones first that look alike. That we talk about last. This we are talking about this. This and yeah, this one last. So there were different cards. For example, these purple cards. This is Seal of the Crusader. Sadly not in the game anymore for Paladins. You can see the class required for that up here. And there were kind of, how to put it easily, there were always restrictions on the cards. So, first of all, this was the amount of cards you need to tap to use this card. And this card has a permanent effect. It reduced your hero's attack by -1 attack. So if you have, for example, a card that costs, let me say, that has 5 attack, it would only have 4 attack. Very similar to Hearthstone with the weapon thing. Going to talk about that in a second. Here was the restrictions. For example, this is a seal card for paladins, and you only can have 1 seal at a time. Down here, there's the effect, and it had a permanent effect because it was under the permanent thing here. And it had a cost effect. And the cost was you can destroy this card to give your hero 2 attack plus this turn. So this effect would just be deleted, the upper one, and you would gain 2 attack more. This is like the when you use Judgment, if you remember from Paladins. That was that effect. So they tried to simulate really good what the actual abilities were. Now we get into the technical stuff. These were quests. The quests themselves, I put those cards on the side. The quests themselves were played in a very early stage in the game, or like they were your resources. In Hearthstone terms, your mana crystals. So you would pull a hand out of 7 cards. Let's just give me cards in my hand. And there were different things. So if I would have that hand, for example, I would have one quest card. Would be this one. So the first thing you do in a turn, you play a card. For example, I play the quest. I can play that face up. Because the quest has an effect when you play it as a resource. You can only play those as a resource. The quest effects are, if a friendly character was destroyed this turn, you can pay 2 of your cards you can tap. For example, you can just tap this card, that would be 1. Again, you would also need those tapping things to summon units or to play buffs and spells. And then you can draw a card. So, and that was for Dern, if you remember him from Nagrand, the group quest. So they try to simulate the requirements to do those quests like you would do the request. So this was a group quest. Someone would probably die. But if someone of your cards died, you can just use the resources and end it. Like, oh no, it's an enemy ally. So it's like a kill quest, right? And if you kill something, you can finish that quest. That was very interesting. I like the concept very much. While other cards like these ones, you could also say, okay, I don't want to play a spell card like this one and put it face down in my zone if I don't have quests. And use that for tapping. So you would have options there. You could use everything as a resource to tap. Now, we have the units that were that everybody knows from Hearthstone. Yellow-colored units, neutral units. This one is special because this one was from the Legion expansion card set. This one is one of the Eldor, and if you play Eldor cards in your decks, you cannot use Scryer cards in your decks. So if you would, you cannot play with the deck with both types of cards in your deck. And that is like the reputation thing, right? You cannot be Eldor and Scryers at the same time. I think there's a bug, or was a bug in World of Warcraft where you could do that, but it goes from what Blizzard intended to do with those cards. So we have also that. And now for the more interesting stuff, those 3 cards. I try to get them closer to the camera. These were these are all gear items. So the gear in this game works very, very simple. The gear had play cost up there, and it had a class restriction. So only, because this is a shield, of course, only classes that can carry shields can play this. Can play with this item. There were also stuff like, of course, like tank specific swords or something like that only Paladin and Warrior could play. But you know where I'm going with this. So you would actually have the restrictions on that. And not only that, you could, every time your hero is attacked, you could just say, okay, this one has 4 defense. So my hero is attacked, and I just tap this one, and I just negate 4 damage. It is very, very easy to understand how the armor system in this game works. It's quite simple. Also, this thing gives, because it's a tank shield usually, this gives your hero the taunt perk, where you can actually, the defender perk, where your hero can say, no, I go in there and catch the attack and be the defending unit this turn. I repeat myself when I say it's quite interesting. Now then, there were stuff like the trinkets, and it even says that it is actually 2 trinkets. So you could actually equip your entire hero character in a game. That was totally possible. You could say, I put every item slot that is in World of Warcraft onto my hero. And this is a Medallion of the Horde, of course. and it does what it does. If you play, this one is also special because it's a horde only card, and it only works against alliance enemies. You can play horde versus horde, and you can play alliance versus alliance, but this one is for playing the other faction. And it also has 1 defense, so yeah, you cannot see that. And now for the interesting stuff. These are the attack cards, and the attack cards, the weaponry, is the same stuff. Here you have like play cost, you have the requirement, whatever. Then you have the damage. There were different kinds of damage. I think this is just frost damage. The different types of damage were not that important unless you had a character with a certain effect interacting on certain damage. I think the enemies in the fire elementals were immune to fire damage in the Molten Core expansion set. I will tell you about that also later. This will be a long video. I think I will split it in 2, but it doesn't matter. Then you had down there the attack cost. So you had to tap cards to attack with a weapon with your hero. The cards range from quite weak to quite strong and back and forth. I will show you a rare card I got, a rare weapon from a raid deck, and I'll show you how that actually develops, like how expensive cards can get while attacking. And then there was this card type. This is Silithus. This is like you would say your zone cards in your what's it called? Your cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like Umi and Yami and stuff like that. These are just locations. This is a location card, and the location cards have actually special stuff. For example, this one has 200 points down there, and the special effect of that is you can put marks on this card depending on how expensive your minions on the map are, on the playing field are. And if you have 200 of those marks, you remember that this is really like the Silithus PvP thing. You get the control of all of the cards in the game on the field except for the heroes. So it would basically mind control on all of the enemy cards just for you. And then we had those here. These are the upper deck cards. These had like a little code down there. This is not working because I can show that code. I used that years ago. And if you went to the upper deck side, you could log in there and put those points on your account and get stuff in your World of Warcraft experience. I got on my Alliance account, which was my first one. I have 2 on my Battle.net. One was my Horde account, which I started at the end of Wrath of the Lich King, and the other one was my account, which I started in Classic. And my Alliance account has the Tabard of Frost, which was a epic Tabard, and I hope I can get it into my wardrobe when I reactivate that account once sometime. So that was like the first stuff I wanted to show you. Now, before I get into the next big card expansion stuff, I want to, I put those on the side. I can clean up later. I show you, I think I show you first my my other cards, the normal ones. The normal cards are, we have like this one here. It's nothing special. It's like another card thing here. I have some of the cards multiple times. Here are some of my rogue cards, which I got in boosters later. If you don't know, rogue is like my little sunshine flower that I love very much. But besides that, I think there's not much except, well, that some of the cards were different. For example, this one is a minion that only warlocks can play, and it is actually an imp, and you can only have one of those units at a time. So it is actually like in World of Warcraft, not like Hearthstone where you can play a zoo lock and spam the field with thousands and thousands of cards. Now here we have, because we had an Aldor card, we had a Scryer. We have a Scryer card. The focus is a bit off. It doesn't matter. The Scryer cards were a bit different than the Aldor cards. The Aldor cards were quite supportive and they were quite good hitters, while the Scryer cards themselves had very much all. You cannot see that good here, but they had a sabotage effect, and sabotage was I can attack something that is not a monster and can do something special. For example, this one can attack equipment and destroy it, I think. Oh no, I can kick it back on the onto the owner's hand. That was it. Different quests. Like I'm looking for something in here. Maybe I find it. I think it was in here. This one was from the my Mechtherodon raid deck. You had like a booster with special cards. You see their holograph. They are mirroring and are holographic cards. And this was an item card, and item cards were just like items in World of Warcraft. They were usables. So you had so many different things. Or, for example, another Mechtherodon card. You can even see that it is a Mechtherodon card down here because the reflection is on the card, so people know where you got it from. This one is like, give it somebody, and if you destroy this card and tap 4 cards, you can draw 4 cards. So it was quite nice and it was quite cool. There's a talisman card. I'm looking for something. Oh, right, here. Here was something I was looking for. Hit to the face. This was a card that only Alliance could play, for example. And it doesn't matter what this down there says. It's like, destroy a unit. But this one is the interesting part, that there were different Horde and Alliance cards that everyone could use. And there were 2 different things. This one and... I can show that. I have to see if I find some of these rare cards. I wanted to show you one of the good rarer cards that I got from my Mechtherodon deck. Maybe I was intelligent, and no. This is also from the Mechtherodon deck. It's the lightsaber crystal thing there that you got in Shattrath. I rather wanted to find something else. Let's see if I find it. As you can see, the game had like tons of cards. The art was phenomenal. And the game was quite diverse. And depending on the playstyle of somebody else, you could build tons of different decks. I mean, there were the better decks. And I fuck shit up again. There were better decks, there were worse decks, but in the end, you had so much build availability because you had thousands of cards and millions of playstyles. I will show you how important, for example, can throw that away, take a sip of coffee, and I can show you how important race choice was, because I have 2 Horde race cards here. This one is Thunderclap from the Tauren. And yeah, you can. It's a quick ability. These work like Yu-Gi-Oh! The quick spell cards, which you can just play during the enemy turn. And if you would have that, you can just tap all enemy units, so you would have one more turn, which is quite sick. So you can turn the entire game around with that. Those were very powerful because you had stuff like cannibalism from the undead. A friend of mine played an undead warrior, and this card is so unfair. It says here you need an undead hero is required, and you can remove ally cards, the little monsters. This is also from the Dark Portal expansion. You see that here. You can remove ally cards from the game, and your hero heals himself 2 for each of those cards. So if you play an aggressive warrior deck and stack up a bit of damage to yourself and kill many monsters, you could heal yourself instantly full as an undead. So undeads were quite, in my opinion, quite powerful. But again, depending on which deck you played, it was quite delicious.